Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to today's episode of Locked On Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, we are free and available on all platforms, and thank you for making Locked On Canucks your first listen of the day. My name is Nick Bondi. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick Bondi. I'm joined, as always, by my brilliant co-host, Lachlan Irvin. You can follow him on Twitter at Lock in the Crease. And Lachlan, you have some big news for the listeners. Why don't you tell them what's going on?
Yeah, I have officially joined the team over at Canucks Army. I'm going to be doing a bunch of articles for them this season. Really appreciative to friend of the show, David Quadrelli, managing editor-in-chief of the Whole Nation Network, actually. For
Capital J journalist.
Capital J journalist, David Quadrelli. I'm really appreciative to Quads for giving me the opportunity. This has been something we've been trying to work on getting done for quite a while, trying to bring me on. And so yeah, to see it kind of finally come to fruition today, right? My first article came out just this morning before we started recording. Was honestly super exciting. I've wanted to work at Canucks Army. I wanted to write for Canucks Army for a very long time. Really since I started writing like 5-6 years ago now. So exciting to finally see it, to finally see my name on that on that site. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, big news. You are officially now, we joked about it before. You are the Big J journalist of the podcast. You officially are now. Like, there's no debating it. You are the Big J journalist of the podcast. A writer for Canucks Army, like very much the Big J journalist of the podcast.
Absolutely. I mean, it sure feels like it that way. It sure feels like it. I mean, like I don't know if there's any other site in the area that, or like there are not many websites like Canucks Army out there that where they have such like a direct pipeline of so many great people who have come through, wrote a few things, and then gone on to these awesome like future endeavors and stuff, like and not even just in Vancouver, like all across the board. Obviously the well-known history of the Computer Boys has been told many a time through their adventures in the NHL, and a lot of guys who wrote for Canucks Army still work around here for different outlets. It's definitely one of those things where it's just got like such a cool group of people who've like come through and been a part of it, that like it feels like you're part of something special when you get to do it yourself.
Yeah, just for clarification, for those who are listening to this podcast, maybe outside of the Lower Mainland, you don't know the history of Canucks Army. It's as close to being, a Big J journalist as it gets, without, writing for the Vancouver province or the Vancouver side. Like Lachlan said, it has a very rich history of writers who have gone on to do great things, over pretty much the past decade. Like it's been like you said, it's been a pipeline of, writers going to do bigger and better things. I think Patrick Johnson, like if you want to look at Big J journalists, he used to write for them. Guys like JD Burke, right? Yeah. Guys like JD Burke, run Elite Prospects now. So it's good for you, Lachlan. I'm very proud of you. I feel like a proud dad right now. I know how hard you've worked to, get to this point, and I'm very excited for you. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you, Bondi. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. But let's get into today's episode. We're going to break down both games from this past weekend, the game versus the Philadelphia Flyers and the game versus the Detroit Red Wings. And we'll talk about the whole Filip Zadina, Conor Garland incident at the very end of the podcast. But let's get right into it. Friday's game versus the Philadelphia Flyers. Canucks won 5-4 in a shootout, obviously blew a 4-2 lead. And I would have been a lot more upset if they blew a 4-2 lead to a Western Conference team, especially a Pacific Division team. You give away a free point like that. It is never good, but it's an Eastern Conference team. It's a team you're not battling for a playoff spot, right? So directly, at least. So at the end of the day, not really a big deal. At least you've still got the 2 points, I think. But Vasily Podkolzin got his first NHL goal. Great snipe, too. High glove on Carter Hart. And he did not have a good game, Carter Hart. We called him Carter Fart on the last podcast, and he lived up to his name, man. Like, that guy stinks.
I honestly have so much faith in Carter Hart, and it's really sad that it had to be this way.
That
But
goal Elias Pettersson scored, where he just didn't hug the post. Like, I even know to hug the post when I play ball hockey, and I'm in goal with my buddies.
yeah, I mean,
It's goaling 101.
Yeah, it was very much he did not get to the post quick enough. As soon as he did, it was kind of a panic move to try to put his body in front, which meant he didn't cover it properly, and that opened it up to there was two of them really. I guess there was the one that he didn't seal the post, and then there's the one with JT Miller where Pettersson basically does the same thing. The wraparound, he doesn't get over it, rolls across the line, and Miller puts it in. It was a game where Pettersson, to his credit, was doing a very good job at kind of reading the boards and reading the goaltender making moves, which is something like that not every NHL player does. Like, and lots of NHL players, they just focus on getting their shot off and just trying to pick the perfect spot. Really great players are able to kind of notice the body language on the goaltender and what the goalie's doing. Those are both and for Pettersson, those were both very heads up plays where he knows exactly what he's trying to do, and he knows exactly what he's seeing Carter Hart trying to do in trying to position himself to do. So the way he was taking advantage of that was really good. The 2-goal lead, the blown 2-goal lead. I will say that, you're right. Like, it is thankfully not a point given up to a team you're fighting for a playoff. You're going to be fighting for a playoff spot with in April. But it's still early, but you do want to see them close out games. Like, that's obviously very important to this right now, especially because, they've so far 3 points on a 3-game road trip. As we'll get into the Detroit game obviously in a bit, but 3 games on a road points on a 3-game road trip so far. That's considered a pretty good run. Giving up 5 points out of a possible 6 in 3 games is less good. So I feel that I do want to see them, not necessarily panic too much when it comes to a lead that might start to slip on them a bit. I think you saw pretty clear evidence of that. There was on the tying goal where the icing call goes against them. It shouldn't have been icing. It 100% shouldn't have been. And but like I said on Twitter at the time, like, that doesn't excuse the fact that Claude Giroux was left wide open on one side to pick his corner.
It was just a very passive third period for the Vancouver Canucks, I found. That was my main issue with the third period, is they were just kind of sitting back and letting the Flyers dictate things, which I didn't like.
Yeah, they got a little lackadaisical. They weren't really they felt the game was fully in hand, and they didn't push the matter. They kind of just they thought they could maybe coast on Thatcher Demko just being Thatcher Demko, but again, he can't do that for you every night. He can do that for you a lot, but you're going to have to step up and kind of keep making his job easy. When you've got the foot on the throat, don't take it off. You got to just keep pushing and keep trying to put the puck in the net over the course of the game.
Yeah, and Vasily Podkolzin scored a goal, but he got stapled to the bench pretty much the entire third period, right? Like, that was a bit of a questionable decision, I think, by Travis Green, because I think Vasily Podkolzin, yes, he's a rookie, but what's his one thing that he's good at? The defensive side of the game. Like, I don't think Vasily Podkolzin is a liability in a 2-goal lead, right? Like, I think he's defensively responsible enough to hold his own with a 2-goal lead. That's what I didn't like from Travis Green.
Yeah, I don't know what to fully make of that benching decision, especially because, like, look, there was no play in that game where obviously Travis Green has a bit of a notorious history of when a rookie makes a mistake, they get, like, stapled to the bench a lot of the time. But there wasn't really that moment for Podkolzin. Like, there was not a play where he was, like, looked egregiously, where he made an egregious error of some kind. Like, it just didn't happen. It just seemed to be a case of, oh, he's young, I'm not going to put him in a dangerous defensive sort of situation or whatever, especially considering Travis Green said, like, in the post game, that he told Vasily prior to the game that he felt he was going to score tonight. So, like, he told him beforehand that he thought it was going to be his night. So
nice
it is
to see it's nice to see the fabled Travis Green pregame talk coming back. Yeah, he always nice to whisper something into a player's ear when they're doing poorly, and it seems to work.
It seems to work. That Podkolzin goal was really cool to see. It was just a great shot off the wing. And the way, like, I think the way he reacted is something I haven't seen from a lot of Canuck forwards. We have a lot of guys on this team that are more the very stoic type. And you just see Vasily Podkolzin basically just full on screaming at the
For
top of his
first
lungs, and I
NHL goal,
loved
man.
it.
Get hyped.
Yeah,
Get hyped.
I loved it. I loved it. And one thing I also really loved is after the game, Pettersson was talking about how he's like, oh, it really reminded me of my first goal. And if you go back and look at the tape, like if you go and look at the highlight of Pettersson's first goal, it is practically identical.
Yeah.
Same coming off the wing, same shot, just right around the circle. Literally
A
the
top
only
shelf sniz, not a snipe, a
yeah,
sniz.
yeah, a top shelf sniz. And literally, if he had just done it a game earlier, it would have been on the same goalie, Mike Smith. It's eerie how close those two goals were in similarity. And it was a very cool moment. And it's good to see Podkolzin get that kind of out of the way. That's sometimes the hardest barrier for a rookie, is scoring that first one is always the most nerve-wracking because you just want to get it out of the way and done. I think now that he's gotten it, it's going to be he'll be able to calm down, settle down a little bit, and settle more into the role he's going to play on this team going forward.
And what I also liked is all the teammates reposting the Vancouver Canucks posts on Instagram with him and his first NHL goal puck. Like, you can already tell he's a beloved teammate. Like, people, the guys
Fun
on the
bunch.
team really like this guy. They really like this guy.
Yeah, you want you want teammates that you like to be around. And like, yeah, winning's great, but you want to win with people you like. It's easier to win with people you like than people you don't like. So, yeah, it's good. It's nice to know that. I feel like the Canucks for the last little while have been a pretty tight-knit group. Like, especially like that core group, they're a close group that really wants to try and win together. And that's something you can't discount. Like, you can win, talent obviously is what gets you to championships and what gets you to the end result. But having a group that you can rally around is a lot of it too. So it's a nice thing to see.
Yeah, and we quickly have to touch on Thatcher Demko's performance. I think we're going to be saying this a lot during the regular season. Thatcher Demko kept them in this game, especially in the first period, right? He made a bunch of, 5-alarm saves that I think really kept them in this game, because the Flyers were pushing in that first period. Home opener, everyone's juiced. I think he really kept them in the game, especially in that first period.
Yeah, Demko is proving very quickly that he is, everything that they expected him to be. Like, and especially like in terms of the way that how he handles pressure and how he handles playing in tough games and games where he's not always getting the help he needs. Like you mentioned, the first period, he held them in it. That game very easily could have been sealed and delivered to the Flyers by the end of the first 20 minutes. And the fact that they were able to stay involved in that game and end up and gain and put up 4 consecutive goals, or 4 not consecutive, 4 goals in the second period, is largely due to just how well he played. They're not in that game without him. And yeah, I've been very adamant that I feel that Thatcher Demko is on his way very quickly to becoming one of the best goalies in the NHL. I think he'll be in that. I think he'll be in that conversation by the end of this season. And so far, the results are looking like that's pretty clear.
Yep, and the kind of the same thing happened to the Canucks in Detroit. They kind of got goalied by the Detroit's tender. But before we talk about the Detroit Red Wings game on Saturday, I want to talk to everyone about DirectTV. DirectTV is a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle. DirectTV Stream brings you your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, which means you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. And the best part, there is no annual contract. Stop waiting and get your TV together with DirectTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Okay, so the game on Saturday versus the Detroit Red Wings. First and foremost, I think we could both agree they got goalied. They got goalied by Thomas Greiss. Thomas Greiss, yeah. You know what? And that's going to happen over any 2-game season. You're going to get goalied, and your goalie is going to steal you points. And we expect Thatcher Demko to steal, Canuck a bunch of points. We just talked about it, but they got goalied. They should have won that game by all things considered. Completely outshot them, completely outplayed them, especially in that third period. They're really pressing. A number of shifts where they were hemming the Red Wings back in their own zone. Just couldn't get him past Greiss. I remember Bo Horvat had a great chance at the side of the net. There was just they had like a bunch of chances to tie the game and get something out of this game, but unfortunately, it just wasn't to be. Especially Thomas Greiss, he just had a great game. You got to tip your hat to a goaltending performance like that, right, Lachlan?
Yeah, Thomas Greiss was very good in that game, and especially in the third period when they were really pressing, really getting their opportunities. One thing I did want to touch on though is that I feel that the high shot total, particularly due to I think they had 23 shots in the third period against Detroit. I feel like the shot total misconstrues the story of the game a little bit.
Okay.
Because
You think it's a fugazi? You think it's fake?
Not fake, not fake. They were definitely Thomas Greiss definitely held them out of that game, but I also feel like as a group, as a full group, I feel like the entire I didn't get the full team didn't show up. I feel like those 46 shots are more indicative of about half the team rather than the full group. Because the first 40 minutes of that game, it seemed like the only two people who were creating any sort of offense, like regular offensive threat, were Conor Garland and Nils Höglander. Outside of them, you weren't seeing a whole lot from the rest of the team. Guys were definitely getting chances and shots. Weirdly, Tyler Myers was very good at not just in the offensive side of things, but actually keeping chances from the Red Wings out of their own zone. He had a very good game. But there was definitely lots of parts of the group that I felt were a little quiet and were not really doing and just weren't really pulling the same weight. And I think that's the reason they lost at the end of the day. Is it kind of felt like you got a situation where they were both clearly the better team, but also not fully good enough. There was very much a mixture of one half of the team showed up and the other one kind of didn't. If that makes any sense.
No, it does make sense. There was a few players, I think, looking back, now that you mentioned it, that didn't really do anything. Like I said, they did outshoot the Red Wings. They should have probably won that game, but it still goes to show that you still need a full team to show up to win in the National Hockey League, no matter the team you're facing, right? Yaroslav Halak, it was his first game in net for the Vancouver Canucks, and I came away thinking this guy does not inspire that much confidence. That was my issue. He had a shaky start. He kind of cleaned it up towards the end of the game, but I just watching that game, it's just man, this guy does not inspire that much confidence, especially in contrast to Thatcher Demko, right? You're playing in front of if you're a Canucks player, you got Demko between the bites. Okay, we have a chance, even if I don't have a perfect defensive game, we have a chance to win this game. It's a lack. It's if I don't have a perfect defensive game, we may lose this thing. So there's obviously a big drop off, I think, between Demko and Halak, especially with their puck playing abilities, right? Halak, especially playing the puck, did not inspire that much.
He's a wanderer.
Yeah, he's not that good at playing the puck. So and you know what? It's his first game. He doesn't know the defense. The defense doesn't know, what his tendencies are. They're gonna have to work that out. But Halak does not inspire that much confidence, I think, going forward.
It was a little that.
But you're the goalie. I want to hear your thoughts. You are the goalie expert, as well as the Big J journalist of this podcast.
Yeah. The jump between going from a game started by Demko to a game started by Halak, it reminded me a whole lot of the 06-07 season when Luongo's first year in Vancouver, and all the times they had to go to Danny Sabrin just because Lou needed a night off. And I think, it took poor Danny Sabrin so long to win a game. I think it took him like I think it wasn't until like the 9th try that they finally won. And part
Yeah.
of that was due to the fact that Canucks did not have a good defense at that time.
Hey, he
Like, they
held
were
the fort when
okay.
Luongo was going to the bathroom, so he did his job.
Yeah, that was Sabrin's big moment. That was Sabrin's big moment where it just like he showed up at the perfect time. Um and yeah, yesterday, I think there were two things that were very clear. One was Halak is a goaltender that, I've watched Halak for a long time. Like, he's been a goalie I've always enjoyed watching play. But one thing about him is that he thrives mostly, at least I found, he thrives mostly in games where he's getting a lot of shots. Where he like every goaltender is different. I think people sometimes don't realize that like there are some goaltenders who are great when you're playing when they only have to face as little shots as possible. They're there to just be very much that last line of defense. And then there are some goaltenders that need to get a feel for the game and need to get as many take as many shots on net as possible to like stay in it and stay active in the game. Halak is kind of one of those guys. So I think the fact that they were playing the Red Wings on Saturday was a little bit of a tough start, tough first opponent for him, just because they weren't going to get a lot of shots on him. So he was going to be a little bit cold at points during the game. And the other part, and I think hence why I think he looked a lot better as the game got on, as he started getting a few more shots over the course of the game. He started looking a lot more comfortable in net. And the other thing, and like you mentioned, the puck moving thing. The thing with Halak's puck moving is that really it's the fact that I don't think the Canucks have had an active puck moving goaltender in a very, very long time. Like,
Yeah.
Demko, like they have guys who like every goaltender is going to play the puck.
They've
Like,
never
Demko
really had a
obviously
Mike Smith type who's like specialty who's known for playing the puck.
not a Mike Smith, a Marty Turco, like none of those, or like a Brodeur. Like, they've never had a guy who really wants to get his stick on his stick in the play. He wants to make plays up to the defense and kind of move the puck. A lot of the Canucks goalies over that last time have very much been, stay in the net, only come out if you absolutely need to. And that goes back really to the Luongo era start of things, because Luongo never played the puck at all and hated doing it. So you can definitely tell this defense is not used to it, and and it's something that I think as they get more comfortable with the new teammate, they're going to get better at it, and they're going to be able to anticipate where he's going to put the puck a little bit better. But yeah, yesterday it definitely was, or the other day it was definitely causing some anxiety attacks for people, I'm sure.
Another thing from this game was just Conor Garland being an absolute pest and terrorizing the Detroit Red Wings. I did not expect an October game between Detroit and Vancouver to get this chippy and this, intense. I was not expecting that. I was legitimately not expecting it. It reminded me back when the Red Wings were in the Western Conference, the Canucks would have to play them, and Canucks were a good team, and the Red Wings were a good team. It reminded me of that type of game. Obviously, the franchises are in two completely different places right now, but that's the type of game it reminded me of. And Conor Garland, he was a pest. And you know what? OEL. We have to shout out OEL, Oliver Ekman-Larsson. He has a bit of snarl to his game. It's not something I expected coming over from Phoenix/Arizona.
No, I didn't expect that side of his game either. I thought he was a lot more passive than that. So it was interesting seeing him get into the heat of the battle quite a few times in the first 3 games here, especially against Detroit. Garland is who I wrote about for my first article with Canucks Army, basically talking about how the Canucks haven't had a Conor Garland type player for a very long time. Specifically, they haven't had a guy in their top 6 who can play the agitator role, play that role, getting under the skin of opponents, but it not come at the cost of his offensive.
Lachlan, you know who he reminds me of? And I hate saying this as a Canucks fan, and the Canucks fans, go ahead and throw.
I think I know exactly where you're going to go.
Throw virtual tomatoes at me if you want. It's Brad Marchand. That's who he reminds me of. And I hate saying it. I hate saying it because I hate Marchand, but that's what he reminds me of. He is a type of player who you love to have on your team, but if you're going up against him, you think he's a POS. And I don't want to say what that means because this is a family podcast.
Yes. That there was a very funny highlight last year where in a game between the Coyotes and the Avalanche where Conor Garland made Nathan MacKinnon so mad that Nathan MacKinnon threw a helmet at him. Or Nathan MacKinnon wrestled Garland's helmet off his head and then threw it at him. It was a very funny clip at the time. And you're seeing exactly that. I'll give a comparable that people will like a little better, which is Alex Burrows. I think it's that guy. Like, the Canucks have had guys who can be the enforcer, or the guy who's there to just be the drop the gloves type guy. But most of the time that means they're not really scoring. They're playing in your bottom six. They're playing maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes a night. And their only job is to be like a deterrent. They're not really there to be a huge help on the ice and winning games. So to have a guy like Garland who can do a little bit of that, but more so is all about scoring, wants to score. In fact, and that was one of his quotes after the game was that he draws a lot of penalties in the NHL. Like, he's one of the guys that draw. Well, I believe one of the higher players has one of the higher numbers in the NHL in terms of penalties drawn. And he talked about how he's like, I don't think that's due to me being like a pest or anything. I think that's due to me always having the puck on my stick and people having to try to defend against me. So clearly he values that part of his game more, which is good, because that's what you want. You don't want a guy whose first focus is always trying to throw another team off. You want a guy who's going to be focusing on winning games and trying to score goals and trying to be a playmaker. And if that, you get the little bonus of he completely pisses off the entire Detroit roster numerous times over the course of a game, that's just a bonus.
Yeah, and Conor Garland got Detroit so mad they felt they had to address it in the post-game press conference, and we'll get to that in just a second. But first, a word from our sponsor, Built Bar. Did you know that Built Bar has so many delicious flavors? There's something truly for everyone. When you talk to a Built Bar fan, they're definitely passionate about their favorite faves. They have great flavors such as coconut, cherry barcia, classic flavors like strawberry, orange, cookies, and cream. And if you haven't tried all the flavors, you can get a mix box, which will get you 2 of each of the 9 flavors. Not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they're healthy too. They have 18 grams of protein in each bar, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and calories ranging from 130 to 180. Go to built.com and use the promo code LOCK15 and you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Okay, Lachlan. Filip Zadina, there was an incident with Filip Zadina and Conor Garland in that Detroit game where, and it wasn't a malicious hit at all. Conor Garland's, sliding, trying to protect the puck, and Filip Zadina just runs into his back. And it caused like a whole kerfuffle in the moment, a few penalties, a huge scrum, what have you. And we mentioned how Conor Garland, he gets under your skin as an opponent. He really gets under your skin. And Filip Zadina felt the need to address it in the post-game press conference with Detroit media. He actually, Filip Zadina had to go off the ice, and he was fine. He ended up coming back in the game. But here's what Filip Zadina said about Conor Garland and that incident after the game. I got the transcript right here. I'm okay. I was just reaching for the puck, and he just reversed me, I guess, like the midget he is. It's pretty normal, that he reversed hit because I don't think he's strong enough to battle me in the corner one-on-one. Lachlan, just a simple question for you. Are those comments fair or foul?
So, 2 things. Number one, Filip Zadina seems to makes this out to be like he's way bigger than Conor Garland. Conor Garland's 5'10". Filip Zadina's 6 feet. So a 2-inch difference, 2 inches. That's nothing. That's barely anything.
I think Conor Garland's. I don't think Conor Garland's 5'10".
Okay.
He's
So
probably the listed 5'10". Everyone gets 2 inches on those things.
Right, because
But you made a good point. You made a good point. Zadina's not a big guy either.
Yeah, they're both the thing is the height is always based on them on skates, right? Because why would you measure them without skates, right? It doesn't make any sense. They're always on the ice with them. So, so it's not like there's actually a huge height discrepancy there. To Filip Zadina, I get that, English isn't his, his I believe his original language, his main language. But that you can't say that. Like, you just can't. That, like, you look at, say, like Travis Konechny the day before on the ice, calling Garland an angry little elf. Again, Konechny's not that much bigger than him either.
And
but
I gotta admit, that was pretty funny.
That was funny because it's a fictional character. Because he's talking about a fictional creature.
Yeah.
Like,
who
it's
doesn't like Elf?
being.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, who doesn't like Elf? Who doesn't like playing Dungeons and Dragons? Like, yeah, exactly, right? But Filip Zadina, what Filip Zadina said was not okay. Like, it's ableist. It's not. It's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's maybe not like a banned word, but it's also just super not okay to say. Like, it's been made pretty clear at this point that that's not a phrase people should be using anymore. I don't care if it's meant to be somewhat of a joke. Like, it's not good. Like, you just can't do that. It's not okay. And at the end of the day, I put it on, as I put it on Twitter the other day, it's like, it's not only is it like not like totally not okay language to use, you're also just really, it's just a self burn, because you're basically like, oh, I got dropped by a guy who's way smaller, who I feel is way smaller than me. And really, at the end of the day, if you watch the tape, Zadina put himself in a bad spot. Like, that's not their Garland put it. You can't, it's like with cars, right? You don't blame the car that got rear-ended. Like, it's the car behind them's fault for hitting them, because they could see they had full view.
Unless you're driving a Tesla with
unless
autopilot.
you're driving a Tesla on autopilot. But yeah, it's very much a case of Zadina put himself in a bad spot. Garland stepped between him and the puck to try and take it away, try to create space. And Zadina was like leaning over to grab it. So he was in a completely bad spot. He hit Garland headfirst, like in the numbers. So it's not Garland's. There's nothing. It's a perfectly clean hit. Nothing Garland could have done to avoid contact. It was very funny. It was just very funny seeing the overreaction of the Red Wings, and then, much less funny seeing the way Zadina tried to defend himself, basically.
Yeah, it was very much I'm not owned energy from Filip Zadina, which was pretty funny. And say what you want about him using the term midget. You know what? I'm more concerned with the fact that Filip Zadina is so, hurt by Conor Garland. He has to use those type of words, right? Like, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, like you said, like hey, why you got like you lost a puck battle? Why you gotta mouth off to the media right after that? It's funny. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. It makes for good content. We're talking about it right now, but I don't know.
Yeah. You mentioned the I'm not owned energy. It's that same. I feel like the same could go for Tyler Bertuzzi, who is just all over like, you could see there were like a bunch of clips of him like laughing at, like, cracking jokes on the bench, or like yelling at like screaming at Garland after like
he was trying to grab Garland after every whistle.
Yeah, and I forget what very funny person tweeted this on Saturday, but they were like, Tyler Bertuzzi is talking up a big game for a guy who will not be allowed to cross the border for the next game against Detroit.
Yeah, if I'm Garland, I'm not getting too close to him. I'm trying to stay 6 feet.
Yeah, no, gross. Don't keep as far away from him as possible. So yeah, there were some very small people on Saturday. Conor Garland wasn't one of them.
Yeah, no way. There's issues with the Detroit Red Wings. I think if Conor Garland is letting them lose their cool that easily. But that has it for today's episode of Locked On Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And thank you for making Locked On Canucks your first listen of the day. Make sure your second listen of the day is Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Host Scott Collin leans on his decades of fantasy hockey insight and experience every day to help you be the expert of your fantasy hockey league. It's free and available on all platforms. Once again, this is Locked On Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick Bondi. You can follow Lachlan Irvin on Twitter at Lock in the Crease. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have full videos on there for every episode, every single day. And Lachlan, where can people find your work at Canucks Army?
Well, yeah, you said it right there. CanucksArmy.com. You can find I'm gonna be writing there quite a bit this season. So make sure to keep an eye on that. And then you can follow me on Twitter at Lock in the Crease. And you can also check out my other podcast, the Creasecast, which I host with Cody Sievertson on Mondays and Thursdays.
Awesome. Yeah, that's everything for today's episode for Locked On Canucks. Thank you for listening.